All right. So, for those of you that are just joining us here on Sweet Home California, there is another part to this conversation over on rainbows and silver linings. So, I will have a link to that in the description down below, as well as a link to Osiris's channel, which is Stuck in the Middle. And make sure that you subscribe over there as well and tell them that Jennifer over at Sweet Home California sent you. Okay. All right. Well, another brief introduction here, Osiris. Let us know a little bit about yourself here before we go on to talking about current events and what we can do to kind of make this world a better place.
Yes, what is good? I'm Osiris, channel Stuck in the Middle. Literally a guy in his basement that saw the chaos of the summer of love. And I wanted the perspective that I had, the big takeaway that I had, didn't come out. And I wanted to start talking about it. I have two young kids, and the where our country is trending is concerning. I know every generation says that, but that is how I feel. So that's my motivation, is really to do my part to kind of change the perspective and where our country is going. Just real quick, politically, if you follow populists, I consider Jimmy Dore a leftist, populist, and Steve Bannon. I'm a big fan of Steve Bannon in the War Room. So I'm somewhere politically in between those two. I
Okay.
am not anti-corporate, but I am for the people first and holding the corporations and corporate politicians accountable.
Hmm. Well, great. So am I. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that, current events have definitely shown where, um, these corporations are getting too big, too influential. We experienced this back with the bailouts in what was it, 2008, where
Yep.
billions of dollars, trillions of dollars going to these banks that are too big. Now we've got a factory being shut down by the FDA because of some problem in making baby formula, and now we have over half of our stores are showing out of stock for formula. And it's because, as far as I understand, it's just one factory. This is the impact of one factory. And I'm not saying that the FDA shouldn't be overseeing these, because obviously, if it's a dangerous product, it shouldn't be going out. But what's really scary is that it's one factory. We need to have more competition. Same thing with these
Yeah.
mega chicken farms. One chicken farm destroyed over 3 million chickens because of one positive test for avian flu. What does this do to us as a country?
Well, it's very disastrous, and I'm concerned about the lying about it. We've got to the point where the trust is completely gone. I have no trust in most anyone in our federal government, without maybe exception of a couple. This has been started from last October. There was the whistleblower came forward in October of last year with concerns about this plant. I think it's the Abbott plant with the baby formula.
Mhm.
And
October.
now, well, that's when they came. The whistleblower came out to the FDA.
Okay, wow.
So, so, so Biden has had plenty of time to understand. Well, okay, this is going to happen. This could happen. The FDA And recently, Joe Biden says, I'm not a mind reader. When someone was asking, well, could you have done more? Could you have done anything? And I talked to my wife about it, and I said, I don't know what the government could have done. And I'm really more for the government staying out of things. But we have to do something now. And what is telling is the government wasn't ahead of this. It took them by surprise. They didn't even have a person in charge of like running, how are we going to address this. They still don't, to my knowledge, to
Mhm.
this day. So they've had plenty of time. Don't let anybody tell you that this just snuck up on them. That's a complete lie.
I heard that Pelosi, as a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 9, that she's very concerned about this and is encouraging using the Defense Production Act to get more baby formula out into the market quickly. My concern with that is that this is not some sort of when Trump used that for making the what was it, the respirators, the ventilators, because of the
Mm-hmm.
concern for this past pandemic. This is a food that you're putting into your baby. I don't know how much I'm going to trust some factory that's never made baby formula before suddenly springing up and putting stuff out on the market. So, what other alternatives are there?
I think the first thing we have to look at is community. We cannot
Hmm.
trust the government. I'm not really a fan of the Defense Production Act in any circumstance. I can understand, I guess, if there's like a nuclear situation or something like that. But I think the solution has to come with us people first.
Hmm.
You got to get together with your community and say who's breastfeeding. Are you overproducing? Can we pool our resources? I don't want to recommend any type of solution as far as making it or something like that. I think you have to talk to your doctor. I think
Yeah.
the community breastfeeding using natural milk, if you can, is the first way to go. This Our government is not going to save us. They're not saviors. They've
Hmm.
dropped the ball on this. We've got to handle this on the local level with community.
Right. And your point about checking with your doctor, I completely agree with that. Breast milk is best. And if it was good enough for your neighbor's baby, I'm going to say, in all likelihood, it's good enough for your baby. But again, talking with your doctor, because sometimes babies do not digest breast milk, and that is the reason why they have these specialized soy-based formulas and things like that. So definitely check with your doctor on that. But the thing that really adds the insult to injury is finding out that a lot of this formula is available in abundance down at the border.
Yeah, it's a disturbing trend of it seems like American citizens have been put behind. When you look at Ukraine, we're sending money over to Ukraine. Mitch McConnell's going to Ukraine. We've got a serious issue here. What is more serious than not being able to feed a baby? I don't, I'm trying to think of what's more serious than that. There should be
Yeah.
no, until this is handled and there should be no discussion of immigration and sending formula to the borders. I've heard different stories. I haven't kept up on that on how much was sent there,
Mhm.
but I don't want to sound mean because I want everyone to be able to feed their babies, but that has to be Americans first, period. And that's why, in my opinion, they've turned that mantra, they're trying to turn it into a negative thing. It should not be
Mhm.
a negative thing to say, you've got to take care of Americans first. America is the most kind hearted, benevolent country that I am familiar with. It's not a negative thing. It's like, let's take care of us first.
Mhm.
We have no problem taking care of other people after we are taken care of first.
I completely agree, and that has been historically true that America gives more to worldwide natural disasters than any other country. And part of it is because we are one of the richest nations, but it's also, I think, because of our that we do believe in a higher power. Most Americans still do, and because of that, we're told that we need to love our neighbors, and that's part of loving our neighbors is to give to them. But talk about that we have to take care of America first. It's like your family. You're not in a position to help someone else if you don't have a roof over your own head. You just then you're all out on the street. You've got to
Yeah.
produce for yourself before you can then give of that produce to other people.
Yeah. And I don't hear our government humble enough. When I make a mistake, I'm introspective. I'm like, okay, what could I have done differently or better? And I understand politics is different because you could be down yourself by, but at this point, I don't have time for it. I don't have
Mhm.
any kind of leeway for something like this to happen, and I never hear a leader say, "Well, this is what we could have done." And this is
Mhm.
what we'll do going forward. We have not done that once with the pandemic. We're not doing this with the baby formula. What else should they be concerned about right now for Americans that they aren't concerned about when they should be, that's going to bite us in the butt down the road? Who knows?
Yeah, going back to the chicken and the avian flu, again, just having these huge corporations like Purdue and Tyson's and things like that, where they've got mega farms. You have one thing happen, and the entire herd or the entire flock needs to be destroyed. And I, I think going forward, I think we need to encourage more of these small local farms to be a part of our food supply, and not so much of the Tysons and the Purdue's of the world.
Yep. And we have to, the government has to tell us, hey, this is what happened here. This is how it applies here. Here are the other things we're looking at now, like you mentioned there. And then that will restore some confidence, I think, to me at least a
Mhm.
little bit, if they were humble and said, that's where we're at. But
Right.
we don't get that. Instead, we don't. Instead, they blame you. They blame us.
Mhm.
They say people are hoarding baby formula.
Mm.
What? So we're the problem now. That it's
Right.
really evil stuff, and people buy that up. People eat it up.
Right.
Some
So
people.
you have a family that maybe had to travel an hour or two to get to a store that does have it in stock, and then they're told, "I'm sorry, you can only get one can." Well, shoot, I mean,
Hmm.
that was a 2-hour round trip for me to get this. You're not gonna let me stock up for the week?
Yep. And they're
Yeah,
putting us
and
all in danger.
yeah.
When you get to the point where you've got inflation, rising costs, rent, um, the George Floyd Summer of Love, in my opinion, in part came because at the state level there were a lot of these lockdowns, and I think people were going crazy. It
Mhm.
just took a spark to light it off.
Right.
And that same thing can happen on a much greater magnitude than the Summer of Love. When you talk about I can't eat or my baby
Yes.
can't eat, you're going to see some crazy stuff.
Do you remember the Arab Spring and the overthrow
Oh yeah.
of the Egyptian government there at the time?
Yep. It's
That
famine.
they say was instigated by a sudden increase in the price of food.
Yep.
And now India, who is another major exporter of wheat, has said that they are not going to be exporting their wheat to richer countries. They have decided that they are going to continue to export to Egypt, which is like the number one. Egypt, which was like the um, the starting point of that Arab Spring, that they're going to continue to export to Egypt, but they're not going to export to any of the richer countries. So, that's going to affect, all of us here. Um, and
Yeah.
I
That's.
think that's going to end
I
up
think.
in maybe some of these riots like we saw during the Summer of Love.
Yeah. It's what India's doing is nationalism. and
Hmm.
and we are trying to stigmatize that here, but all they're
Hmm.
saying is India first. That's all that is.
I
um,
do not blame them at all for that.
nope.
And we just need to get to be producing and keeping that here to make sure that we are, our people have the food and the things that they need before. Again, we have to be strong ourselves
Yeah.
before we can help anybody else. Just like
Well.
in the airplane, I just got on an airplane
Mm-hmm.
ride here recently. No mask, by the way. And they tell you, when if you experience a loss in cabin pressure, you'll have the oxygen mask come down. Put it on yourself first before you help who's next to you.
Yeah. The elephant in the room is, I think many people understand, and a lot of people are understanding that we need to be more America first, and that's a nationalist approach. And the elephant in the room is that would have to agree and show that Donald Trump was right. And there are
Hmm.
people who have this deranged take that I can't ever agree with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was based, he was right on a lot of topics. The dude's not
Hmm.
perfect. Who is? I mean, why do we always have to qualify that? Is Biden perfect? No. So
Hmm.
I think the real thing. So, for example, I don't know if you follow the populist left in D.C. I call them fake because they are fake, but the Squad, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, they voted for the funds to Ukraine. And
Hmm.
that is kind of bizarre. For the populist left has typically been an anti-war party. And in
Hmm.
my opinion, I wonder, that bill was going to pass regardless.
Hmm.
They could have voted no and said, hey, we're still anti-war, and
Hmm.
the bill still would have passed. So why wouldn't they just vote no and keep their street cred as anti-war? Because you know who else voted no? Marjorie Taylor Greene and that faction of DC. So they would have had to align themselves with people who they want to label as racist and MAGA. And so that shows you what they care about, if that's true, more than anything.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
that's
they
the
can't
elephant in
have
the room.
they can't have a nuanced argument. They can't. They're not consistent
Yeah, well,
at
they don't
all.
want to agree with people that are labeled as.
Yeah, no
That's the
matter what it
thing. They
is.
don't want to
Yeah.
even. Yeah, even if they're 100% right. So in this position, like the anti-war position, America First, they're actually left of the squad. The squad is taking a
Mhm.
corporate position where they're taking money, giving it to the defense contractors, and no tracking with it. That's why Rand Paul held up the bill. He said, "Hey, I want to track it." They said, "No, we don't want you to. We don't want anybody to track it." And the squad agrees
I
with that.
listened to that. I could not
Mhm.
believe that, Schumer came on and said, "He's just against it, and we that's just gonna delay things, so we need to just move forward." My goodness, it's been proven time and again the amount of waste that the government has, and, they asked for Biden asked for, like, 33 billion, and they gave him 40 billion. What's that extra 7 billion for? So they can have kickbacks to all their pet projects, and, their family, their brother, their son, or whatever has contracts that are gonna be getting kickbacks on these? Rand Paul was asking, "Let's check where this money's going," and they don't wanna know that.
That's it was brilliant. So the
Mhm,
people in the House, like Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Gosar, the ones that voted against it, great. But Thomas Massey came out with a quote. He said, we're on the honor roll because we voted against it." I was like, I give you credit, but it still passed. So I
mhm,
like y'all, but we lost. But here's
mhm,
why I'm different on Rand Paul. Rand Paul's move was brilliant because it's still going to pass. But
mhm.
what he did, he exposed it. What's the biggest
Yes.
thing they say about people who are America First? Worry about the baby formula. Worry about our country and the board closing up the border. They say you're a Putin shill if you don't want
Mhm,
to take the money to Ukraine. So
mhm.
I don't think Rand Paul wants the money to go there at all. But what he
No.
said was, you know what? You can take the money. Rand Paul said you can take the money and send it to Ukraine. You can.
Mhm.
I just have one request,
Yeah.
that we track where it goes.
And it was
So
a
he
definitely a
exposed them.
reasonable request.
Yeah. So he exposed them. He's like, so you can't argue, at least on that bill, that he's a Putin shill. He said, I'm okay
Mhm.
with the money going. I just want the inspector, the special inspector general, whoever, to track where the money, the same person or same position that's doing it with Afghanistan that exposed a lot of issues. And
Mhm.
for them to say no to that, it tells you all you need to know. Imagine if you had a contractor doing work on your house. They say it's going to be $40,000. Well, of course, I'm on a track. What are you spending it on, or where's that money going? And
I
they say,
wanna see
nah,
the
you can't track
invoices,
it.
I wanna see the receipts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And then imagine if they said no. Oh, you'd be like, get
Yeah.
the hell out of here. I'm going to call somebody else.
Yeah, and we, the American people, should be calling Congress and the senators and saying, "We need to know." It goes back to that bot thing that we were talking about on the other channel, that the bots keep trying to they're drowning out the voices of real people. And so in the on the case of on Twitter, whatever information our elected leaders are getting, it's the bot narrative, and we need to overcome that with actual calls, human being calls, talking to these people and their staff, saying we don't support this. You are not going to get reelected by us, to overcome these automated things.
Yeah, it holds us. It doesn't give us an authentic place to where the country is. So if you
Hmm.
have a voice in our country, social media is the only place. There's no
Yeah.
town square in public that you're going to go to have any type of voice in this country. And there are prominent figures who will espouse, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And what did they do? They banned her from Twitter, at least her personal account. What did they
Hmm.
do? Trump wanted to pull us out of these global agendas. I don't want to name too many of these groups, but he wanted us to pull out of those groups and focus on America first. What happened to him? He's pulled off of Twitter. So they're tipping the scales to say, ooh, these influential people that might show another perspective, we got to shut them down so we can keep everybody with the Ukraine flags in their bio, which I'm completely for the common person of Ukraine, but I'm not for sending any money over there. They need to work that out diplomatically, and we need to focus on us.
Right. Right. Um, About the Ukraine, yeah, I'm, from Ukrainian ancestry. My mom is selling flowers to help support the local Ukrainian, uh, church, which then they are putting money in to help the individual people. They're not funding the war machine. They're just trying to make sure that the people of Ukraine are being taken care of, as much as humanly possible, which I totally, support that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, there is going to be an assemblyman from California, my assemblyman here, who happens to be Republican. One of the few Republicans in California. It is a supermajority in both chambers of the state legislature are Democrat. But I'm going to be going to his town hall on Friday. Can't wait to see how that is. But again, if you have any town halls in your area, go participate in that, because then they know you're a real person, and you need to overcome, whatever they're being told through their Twitter accounts, so that you can sway them back to being more moderate, more reasonable, more America first. We got to take care of our people before we can take care of anybody else.
Yeah,
But I
that's
can't
good. A
wait
lot
for
of
that.
town halls are virtual now, so
Hmm.
that's in person.
This will be in person. Yep. In
Good.
our small town here, only about 10 minutes away, so I got
Oh,
no excuse
yeah.
not to go. I live in it's a really big county. It's Kern County, and the seat of the county is about an hour and 15 hour and 30 minutes away. So it's really hard to be involved. Like our Board of Education meets in Bakersfield, an hour and a half away. If I were to get involved in state politics, that would be in Sacramento, which is 8 hours away. So I can't um, I can't not go to this thing that's only 10 minutes away. And of course, then be a poll worker, which is going to be in my own town, within a 5 minutes away. So even if you think you don't have time to do these bigger things, you know, be involved in what you can be involved in.
Yeah, we have to. We have to be on the local level, and if they can see us in person, that's even better.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
watching Tim Pool, and there was somebody running. I forgot where they were running, and they were talking about how right now in DC, everything's virtual. There's basically work from home. They come
Hmm.
in for some votes, but they don't see any of their constituents. They maybe will do like a virtual town hall here and there. They literally
Hmm.
could be on a beach in Bahamas half the time. It wouldn't matter. They're doing virtual calls, virtual hearings, and I hope there is a red wave in the midterms, and that because they set the rules every year after the election, they gotta take all that out. It's got to be back in person. We need to see you. We need the hearings back in person. We need to. You can't force the town halls, but we need the town halls in person.
Hmm.
All that kind of stuff.
I agree in that it should be that option to be in person. And I think that the legislators, whoever is holding the meeting, they should all be in person to be able to talk to one another. But I got to tell you, as somebody who's an hour and a half away from my county seat, I appreciate the ability to listen in from my home, and even having that option of being able to raise my hand and say, okay, I have a question for you, answer my question, even though I can't take the time for that 3 hour round trip. So
Good
in,
point.
in
Maybe
that
they could do
regard,
a
I
hybrid.
like that part. Yeah, hybrid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, because in fact, our Kern County wanted to stop these virtual town hall meetings and have everything in person. And I
Mm.
put put forth my opinion that no, we need to keep it. I'm not sure if they've decided on that yet, but yeah, having that ability, that transparency, I think is really needed, and there's no reason not to.
Yep. Yep.
So, what else about current events do you think that we need to discuss, and maybe hope for change here? And
What this wouldn't be ending on a positive note, but there was the mass event, the shooting that happened recently, and one of my big concerns right now is how that everything's being politicized, but that's being really weaponized right now. Have you followed anything with the Buffalo shooting?
I have, and I also would compare it to what happened in Milwaukee. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't read too much on Milwaukee other than a headline that there were 17 shot and 10 people arrested. And then it just kind of died down, and I don't really see much being discussed about it. And then, of course, we have that event that happened in Buffalo, and it is absolutely tragic what happened there. And my concern with that is they're going to want to lock down on people's 2A abilities that much more. Whereas he said he chose New York because of their 2A limitations.
Mm-hmm.
They've been making a big deal that this perpetrator, had on, torso coverings and head coverings that protected him. And unfortunately, the one person who was legally um, possessing a kinetic um, instrument tried to stop the perpetrator, but was unable to because of the protection he was wearing. And then, unfortunately, that security guard lost his life in trying to defend others. My concern, though, is that now not only are they going to try and limit people's legal ability to have their Second Amendment, but they're also then going to limit their ability for protection as well. And that is really concerning as well, because especially you want to go to the grocery store and you're concerned whether or not you're going to make it out all right. You know what? Maybe you want to put a plate in a backpack just in case, because I saw that some still shots, and I heard what they were talking about, that this guy went out and within seconds, there was no, even if you were legally carrying, it was next to impossible to react as fast as he was going.
Yeah, it was live streamed as well. There's video. It's very disturbing. From my standpoint, one of the reasons why I wanted to get on and do a channel was I got tired of, and this is what happened with George Floyd. They used a dead black person, and this is typically coming from Democrats, but the establishment GOP is the same as Democrats. They use dead black people as leverage to get their political ideologies passed or policies passed. And what they're doing now, like you said, with 2A, and they're even taking it worse. There's a Rolling Stone headline. I don't know if you saw this. It says, "The Buffalo shooter isn't a lone wolf. He's a mainstream Republican." That's literally a headline from the Rolling Stone comparing mainstream Republicans to a mass shooter. And they're going after Tucker Carlson hard and Fox News. That people are saying, hey, cable providers should drop Fox News. And I don't think they care about Fox News. They care about Tucker Carlson because
Mm-hmm.
he's different. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're weaponizing this. And it hurts me to see black Americans align with the Democrat Party. You go back and just look at the general election, go back all the way to 72. The lowest amount of black Americans support that they've got for black Americans is 82%. It's 82%, 85, 86, 87, 90%, even higher than that some years. And I'm not saying go Republican. I'm saying find another path.
Mm-hmm.
This is I am sick and tired of the Democrat Party using dead black people. So what they do is they basically, the Democrat Party, the engine of the party, they walk around looking for dead black people. How did that black person die? Did that black person die based on another black person? Probably not going to garner the emotion we need. Did that black person die based on some story we can tell to get people ginned up? Yes. Let's do it. Let's use it to cancel Fox. Let's use it to cancel Carson Tucker. And repeatedly, many people fall for that. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
show another perspective. If you want to do that, fine. But my perspective is it's disgusting, and I will not align myself with anybody who takes this incident and then immediately, while the bodies are warm, use it to try to censor people. That's that's just straight up evil.
I completely agree with you on that. I really do. And oh my goodness, it is such a divisive issue. It makes, like you didn't feel comfortable talking about the Roe v. Wade. This is a topic
Mm.
that is uncomfortable for me to talk about, because even within our own family, it's been very divisive, and slurs have been hurled by my more leftist relatives, saying, "Well, if you feel this way, then you're a worthless human being that doesn't deserve to have a job." And
Yeah.
so I'm just going to leave it at that. That it really needs to be the Black community that speaks up on this, because anybody else is going to be canceled, and their lives are going to be ruined. We need
Yep.
more Candace Owens and Larry Elders and Osiris's and Black conservative patriots. And
Yep.
I'm
To say that,
really
and
glad that you're out there.
yeah, the good news is there's a lot more. I like
Mhm.
black, or just anyone, not just black, but libertarians as well. I
Mhm.
follow a guy named Eric July, Young Ripa. If you go on YouTube, he goes by Young Ripa, and he's
Mhm.
an independent thinker. So we don't agree on everything. It's not about that. It's about what's your approach. And he
Mhm.
approaches things independently. And that's where I challenge anyone. It doesn't matter what race or creed, but I am seeing a lot more of that. We are seeing more people challenge the system. That's why we're actually seeing more extremes from the corporate um, government to kind of reel things in. We saw the disinformation governance board. The reason why
Mhm.
I think they're bringing stuff like that up is they're losing control. I think people are seeing the when you run out of baby formula, I think you start questioning everything.
Yeah. I think also that, having somebody like the Buffalo shooter go out there and, it does look like at this point that he was targeting that community. Why? Is he feeling that because he as he was a white male, that he has no voice, that if he says anything, he's gonna be canceled? Is the suppression of free speech forcing this sort of radical reaction? And I think that the media and cancel culture does have some responsibility to bear on this. Not really Tucker Carlson, but the media that's saying we can't talk about this at all. And so if you can't talk about something, what's the next option?
Yeah, at the very least, if you're being honest about it, you'll bring up the question. So if you want to say, "Hey, I'm going to blame Tucker for that," and you don't, say, "Hey, wait, there's this critical race theory and this anti-white position has gotten very mainstream recently," or you can interpret it as that. Is that
Mhm.
playing a role? So if you bring
Mhm.
up Tucker and you bring up that and say, "Hey, I just want to look into it and talk about," I can get with you, even though I don't agree with Tucker's not a part of this at all. But if you look at both sides, then I can talk to you. But if you're looking at Tucker and you don't acknowledge that there's things happening on all sides that is questionable right now, then you're not being genuine.
Yeah, it's kinda like that, study that took Fox viewers, and they paid them to watch CNN for a month, 7 hours a week, and
Mm-hmm.
remarkably, their views got changed, and they're like, "Oh, look, this is great, this is hope." They're finally being able to identify the fake news that was on Fox, but they didn't do the flip side. They didn't take CNN viewers and offer to pay them to watch Fox and see what kinda changes they might have on their views. So, yeah, completely disingenuous, and how can you listen to any of it when they're going to slant it that way?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that the Elon Musk Twitter deal goes through because it could affect a lot of things.
Hmm.
If he's able to bring it through and have a little bit more balance on there,
Yeah, what
I
happens
think
if
that
all
would
those bots
shift.
disappear? What
Yep.
happens? What happens to the narrative? How is that? And how I would just love to see him try. That's my hope. There's a lot of things I don't agree with on Elon Musk. For instance, I am pro-life, and I know Tesla has come out as a company for those employees that are in California that they will have all expenses paid for people who need to go to, um, a more uh,
Another state. Yeah.
pro-choice state, yes, than Texas. But in any case, in terms of free speech, though, as of right now, I am aligned with what his stated goals are. So I hope it goes through. But anyhow, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time. I look forward, hopefully, that we can chat again in the future. And again, anybody who has not heard of Osiris, please make sure that you go down to the link below to his channel and subscribe over there. Let him know that I sent you. And again, appreciate it. Do you have any last words, Osiris?
It was great. Thank you. I appreciate it. We can do it anytime. A great conversation, and I really enjoy your channel and your work. And keep it up. Just keep doing it. I'm gonna support you 100%.
Great. Well, thank you very much. God bless, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Yep. Take care.